All right, so I got to talk about this because I'm thinking, like, how am I going to write about cloning, doppelgangers, breeding diversity into the population? How am I going to start this out? And then remember everything from the micro level to the macro level. And it's right there in plain sight yet again. But you have to understand the verbiage and the words to understand the intentions. And so, yes, biotech are a bunch of jargon oriented university students who have been compartmentalized to go and fulfill an agenda, which is to collect and then create or convert antibodies into monoclonal antibodies and then breed communism, when you think about it, into the population. Because what are you breeding? You're breeding the same DNA, and those that cannot take to the DNA will be bred out of the population. They'll be basically reproduced out of the population. They'll be upgraded out of the population. And those that take to these vaccinations and these antibodies and these monoclonal antibodies will then be the similar people with similar characteristics, similar thought processes, similar predispositions, similar personality types. Not the same, but they'll be able to withstand the environment. And so, like anything, the more that you resist, the more it will persist you out of existence. See, that's the secret of adapting to any environment, is you're not resisting the environment, you're adapting to it. When you adapt to an environment, you prolong your life. When you resist an environment, you actually shorten your life because you don't have what it takes to be able to adapt and assimilate and be a productive, contributing member to society. So monoclonal antibodies. So how I'm going to start this one section that I'm thinking, like, how am I going to start it, is that yes, when you breed and create a society, a planned society, it starts at the micro level. It starts at the monoclonal antibody level. Why monoclonal antibodies? Because those are actually packets of DNA. They're antibodies, which are basically packets of DNA that are excess junk DNA that the body's releasing. Yes, you have junk DNA in your body, mind, and spirit, but you also are releasing excess DNA that the body cannot use. That is excess. So it's still part of it's still basically a blueprint of you. Your antibodies are a blueprint of you. And if you want to create clones, you take a blueprint, take your DNA, a blueprint of you, and then you go and take that, extract that, and then go create something in a lab to where then you can go and try to alter other people's DNA with that data, with that blueprint. No different than when everyone takes the same class. They want everybody on the same page, so you take English, math, social studies, science. You learn all the same stuff in a very indoctrinated form, because it's all indoctrination, right? And that's how you get everybody on the same page. And those that resist the indoctrination, those that resist the data, are the ones that are not going to be able to adapt to the new society, because there's going to be very specific rules, specific expectations, contingencies that you're going to have to figure out how to assimilate to. And if you can't assimilate to it, you will be upgraded and reproduced and destroyed out of existence because of the fact that you cannot assimilate to the new environment. And so instead of just destroying you at the macro level, which is like what they did back in World War II, now it's at the micro level. It's taking monoclonal antibodies from so many different people and creating a specific intention with these antibodies, and then inject the population, and those that can take to the programming will survive and be a productive member of society. Those that cannot take to the programming will be out of existence. And so that's how you breed diversity in the population. That's how you breed communism into the population. Because obviously those that don't agree at the biochemical level with the environment, they're not going to survive. They'll die. You already see it in your friends and family that cannot survive the environment. You watch some people are going on are in a disintegration process, and their body is disintegrating before your very eyes. Their minds are disintegrating before your very eyes. Their spirit is disintegrating before your very eyes. And so you see it. Some people cannot take to the programming of the environment. Like, this virus is actually causing people's disintegration process to be even more accelerated. And people like me, people on the Jilly Juice, are taking to this virus and these upgrades and enhancing and amplifying our DNA. And then anything that our body doesn't think is appropriate as far as any DNA monoclonal antibody, whether it's in a vaccine or in the environment, our body will release it, and it becomes part of the microbiome, And either it's in the sewer system being then recycled back into the universe again, or someone else will pick it up and try to adapt to it. And that's what they call communicability. That's what they call infection or infectious. That's what they call, just data transfers. There's direct data transfers and indirect data transfers, and that's like when you're around a person and you're giving off your antibodies or giving off data, in communication. Those are indirect. And then there's direct transfers where you take a class, or you get injected, or you have sex with someone and you get basically injected with their DNA in some way, shape, or form, right? So there's so many different ways you can get the data of the environment into your body and figure out whether or not you will adapt or resist it. Okay, when your body's resisting so much, it won't be able to live because it's resisting too much. You should have a certain amount of resistance to certain things and then have a certain amount of adaptation to other things. You should have more adaptation than resistance. If you are resisting so much, guess what? That means you have too much poison in the environment. When you're in a gas chamber or getting carbon monoxide poisoning, your body's resisting so much it's making all these antibodies, and those antibodies are going to attack you at the micro level. They're going to destroy your vital organs because you can't possibly adapt because you're resisting so much. Resistance is futile. That's what they say. Resistance is futile. So that makes sense. Like I'm watching people on my Facebook with the mask thing, with the social distancing, with the vaccinations and all that, and they're just resisting. They're not really doing jilly juice, and if they are, it's very minimal. And so they're actually resisting more than they're adapting, and guess what? They won't have the energy to actually heal because they're putting their energy into the resistance. It's like you only have so much amount of energy that you can actually dole out. You can't spread yourself that thin. If you spread yourself too thin, guess what? You will not meet any objective that you want. You'll have a misalignment in the way you speak and what you say to whatever your actions are in the outcome. So that's why not everyone's going to survive jilly juice, because they haven't figured out that resistance is futile. You have to adapt to your environment. And jilly juice will help you adapt, but you have to face your evolution. You have to face the pain, face all the different demons. And sometimes you have to put boundaries down where you can. You put too many boundaries down, then there's no life getting to you. And then you'll dissolve that way. Just like, when you put somebody in a white room, devoid of air, devoid of social interaction, devoid of everything, they have so many boundaries that they can't survive. So again, it's all about balance. Balancing your adaptation and your resistance. Too much resistance, you'll die, and too little resistance, you'll die. Because you don't have enough boundaries. Or you'll have so many boundaries that you can't even penetrate their brainwashing, and so you can't get jilly juice into their world because they're so resisting anything new that they'll die anyways. And that's what you're seeing out there, people that are resisting jilly juice. They're resisting so much that they're not allowing the life protocols penetrate their death disintegration programming, their self-destruct programming. And so that's why you don't waste your time. You get the information out there, you give people enough information for them to do their own research. I've made it easy with my book, and I'm making it even easier with my next book. And then you walk away and you let them come to you and say, hey, yeah, let's align, but I don't want to cannibalize your spirit or your body or your mind. I just want to know that there's somebody else out there with the same thought process that I can kind of just bounce off lightly what my feelings are, what I'm thinking, just to make sure that I know I'm going down the right road, even in my own body, mind, and spirit. It may not be the same as somebody else's, but at least there's other people out there that are going through the same thing you're going through, even though it's not exactly the same thing. Okay? And so, so that's how you treat jilly juice. But you never try to ram something, because their resistance is going to bring up more antibodies. The more you try to ram something like jilly juice into a person that is so resistant to anything, it's going to cause them more death. Because they're going to now put up their walls and their antibodies and everything else, and it will never penetrate. So you don't want to, make people resist you even more. So you just walk away. If someone resists you already, then walk away. Don't even bother, because you don't want to add more antibodies or more resistance to their already, tunnel vision of life, or what they deem as life, which is really a disintegration process. So yeah. So yes, there is a way to breed communism into the population, but you can breed communism in a life way into the population, as well as a death way as well. But too much death will then completely, defeat the purpose. But learn the balance between adaptation and resistance. Oh God, I gotta write this down. Adaptation and resistance. Oh my God, I'm running out of paper. Okay. Adaptation and resistance is a balance. Again, resistance is like antibodies. Too much antibodies destroys you. Too much resistance, it will destroy you. That's why resistance is futile. It's all about adaptation. And if you have some kind of resistance, it should be released almost immediately, so that way you have the ability to adapt. Adapt to new information, adapt to your environment, which is new information, adapt to new people, which is new information, adapt to almost any change in your environment that's not too extreme, that's going to cause more resistance. Like again, when you're in a enclosed room with the engine running, the resistance is going to be your antibodies, and that will destroy you. So you don't want to have too much resistance. You don't want to have enough resistance. You want to have enough boundaries. So adaptation, resistance, and boundaries. And boundaries. So that way you're not being cannibalized or possessed by someone else because your resistance is low and your adaptation is low. And so then you're allowed someone else to invade your body, mind, and spirit. And so you have to have a balance of all of that. And the only way you're able to really do that effectively is if you chemically align your body, mind, and spirit with the right protocol, which is J-Juice, because there's nothing else. There really is nothing else. I can't express it enough that there is nothing else in the world that's going to help you align your body, mind, and spirit on a potential indefinite basis when it comes to the microbiome and your biochemistry and the elements other than Jilly Juice. Jilly Juice is the only freaking way, I'm telling you. They've already tried to figure out all the different antibiotics through the elements and through different biochemical signaling, transcription, termination. They're already messing with their genome, messing with your microbiome, messing with your environment, trying to manually, synthetically align you. But then it's always a chain reaction, a domino effect. You mess with this, it's going to mess with something else, and all of a sudden you're on a string of drugs and a string of protocols, and then you're being reproduced out of existence because nobody has figured out balance. And you can't tell a person who's in balance that they're in balance unless they actually figure out they're in balance, and then they want to have some balance, and they want to see what it's like, and they have to understand pain, understand DNA and RNA, and some people are too far gone. I know people in my world that I could not introduce this. It would go right over their head. And I'm not saying they're stupid. I'm saying that they have not been bred to take on new information. They've been bred to only be a certain type of slave. Only be a certain type of slave. And there's different levels of that. There's people that understand my information, but they don't want to change because it's just too much work. Other people would not get this. Would not get this. And you know it because you can see it. You know people that are like that. I'm not even going to say a type of people because I don't want to have anyone come after me and be like, you're such a jackass, Jillian. But I know specific people, types of people, that they are bred to only do what they are told to do. And that's it. You can call them the military types, but even military types have intellect. Not all military types are just like all about following directions. But there are people that are not part of the military, not part of any kind of organized type of formalized institution, because even then they couldn't even really, get through high school. But you know who they are. You've met them. You probably found them weird. And there's also so much cancer, disease, and chronic illness in that family as well. And so there's no way you can get something like Jilly Juice across to them at this level, at this juncture. So yes, this virus and what Dr. Fauci and what Bill Gates is doing is taking away those that are just, that don't have a lot of cognitive ability to be able to process, complicated concepts. But they also are, getting rid of those that are so indoctrinated that they can't even question what it is that they're doing. There's got to be a balance because you got to have some kind of innovation in the population. You can't have all people who are just following directions and that's it without questioning. There has to be a balance so that way they can innovate and make things better. Because even if with the Jilly Juice, then it's how do you make music better? How do you make cooking better? How do you make the environment better? You still need more innovation to make things better. Okay, but there's people out there that are not contributing to the innovation of our society. But we still do need a workforce that's willing to just follow directions and just be bred to just do hard labor, and that's it. But then if they're not having some kind of individual thought process or feel like that they own themselves, then they won't take to the programming either. So there's such a delicate balance to making sure that we have a workforce, we have an innovator force, we have, you know, a leadership force, a follower force, an infrastructure force, you know, academic force to teach those that they're willing, if they guide reproduction carefully, how do you teach the new people the right way so they don't go outside the lines of life and cause, you know, death in the population. So it really is, you know, when you are developing a planned community, there's so much you have to think about. And believe me, they've had centuries to study us. But you have to see it on a more of like on a superficial level. Even though I'm not getting into the way deep stuff, because there's probably more, deeper stuff than I'm talking about. But at least you kind of see that how diversity and how communism and how thought processes and how things are brought to the surface and developed and converted and created. And so that way, you know, if you have a superficial level of understanding of that, then you know there's a deeper portion of it. What that is, I don't know. All I know is what I've been taught, and I don't do a lot of drugs, so I don't have that spiritual side of it. And so it's like, you know, I'm just adapting to my environment. Okay, that's all I'm doing, is adapting to my environment. And if there is a new thing in the environment, I'll adapt to that. All right, so I'm just kind of giving you the cliff notes on how to adapt and survive this next purge, because we are dealing with a purge. Will you be able to survive it and adapt to it, or are you going to resist it so much you will reproduce yourself out of existence? You will resist yourself out of existence. All right. Talk at you later. Bye.